Hi there, I'm Paul. Thanks for watching another of my videos. This one is on the topic of PowerApps and specifically on the topic of using the camera control and also the add pictures control with SQL Server as your backend data source. So this is kind of a follow-up video to a follow-up video. I originally created a video a couple of months back on how you could use the camera control and take those images and put them in SQL Server and then display those images in a gallery in image control. So the sort of thing that I've got on the screen here at the moment. So the camera control, taking pictures and then having them appear in a gallery. And when I put that video together, the technique that I was using at the time was using the image data type in SQL Server. And I had some feedback on that, and I also discovered from my own use as well that performance when you're using the image field type is not really very good. So the image field type and PowerApps do not play very nicely together. So if your source field for your image in your gallery is a SQL Server image field type, what you will find is it takes a long time for the pictures to appear. When they appear, sometimes the first one appears and then one down here and then the ones in the middle fill in, and sometimes they appear and then disappear again and then come back again a little bit later. So really not very satisfactory. So I started looking at other techniques that might help and found that you can actually use a varchar max column. And that was great, so I did a little video about that, and then I had feedback from that video saying, well, that is a great technique if you're using the camera control, but it doesn't work with the add picture control. So in this video I'm going to show you how you can do something similar or use the same ideas with the add picture control as well. Now first of all, I want this video to sort of work as a standalone video, so I'm going to go through a few key concepts. And I'm going to start by doing that with a SharePoint list as my backend, but then we'll come on to using SQL Server in just a couple of minutes. So this particular screen that I've got here is all tied to a SharePoint list, and I'll show you that SharePoint list in a second, but I just want to go through some basics of the camera control first. So as you may know, with the camera control, when you click on the camera control, it records an image. Now I can't see the image anywhere on my screen because I don't have any control to display it. So let's fix that now. I'm just going to quickly put in an image control. So there it is, and I'm going to set the image of this to be camera1, that's the name of my camera control, .photo. And there you can see as soon as I put in camera1.photo, here it is. That was the picture of me at the time when I clicked on the camera control. So obviously on a mobile device you tap on the camera control and you take the image. So let's just show that. I'm going to hold up one hand this time so you can see it, and I click and there we are. So what we discover there is that the photo property of the camera control is storing the image. And then in a moment we'll see we can record that image in SharePoint or SQL or whatever we want to do. Okay, now I'm going to do something which is a little bit less obvious. I'm going to take a label control and I'm going to pop the label control on my screen, and I'm going to make it nice and big, and you'll see why in a couple of seconds. I'm going to set the text property of that label control to be camera1.photo. And what's going to happen? Isn't that interesting? Boom, we've got a whole load of gobbledygook, a whole load of strange text and numbers appearing in there. Well, that's the actual data for the picture, because what PowerApps is doing with the camera control is when it stores it as a string, a base 64 string of text. But this is just text, it's not binary data, it's text data. So once we know that, there's a few interesting things that we can do. So one of them is to actually be able to store images in a list in SharePoint. So let's quickly show you that, and then we're going to come on to SQL Server, as I say. But if I go into my list in SharePoint, what I've got here is just a very simple list. So title is already part of all SharePoint lists anyway, so all I have done is add a single column, and that single column that I have added is of data type, when it appears on the right hand side here, multiple line text. There we are. So it's a multiple line text type of field. And if we go into more options, and this is very important, you have to turn off rich text formatting. So make sure you turn off rich text formatting, otherwise this won't work. So all these toggles should be on no, but by default the rich text formatting is usually on, so make sure you go into more options and turn it off. Okay, so there we are. So that's how our images appear. They're prefixed with a little bit of information to say what follows. So in this case it's data image JPEG in base 64, as I say. And what I've done in here is I have just based my gallery control on this list test image. That was the name of the list. And to get things into my list, I've got a button here, and all I am doing with that is I'm saying patch to the list test image list. I want this to append information. I want to add photos on, so we use this defaults instruction, so that will make sure that what we're doing is not updating an existing entry, that we're actually adding a new entry to the end of the list. And then in here we just give the information about what columns we want to populate and what we want to populate them with. So title, I'm just defaulting to test 1, but my test image, that's my column here, my test image column, my test image column is based on camera1.photo, and as we know now, camera1.photo, that property is just full of a load of text. It's just a very long string of information. So let's just demonstrate that working. So let's go into the run mode. So that's the most recent image captured, me waving. So I'm going to click on the button there. That's going to run the patch command to load this image into my list in SharePoint, and then my gallery will refresh because my gallery is based on that same list, and there is the image of me waving. So I've just managed to save an image into a SharePoint list and to bring it back again. Now in the SharePoint list you can't see it as an image in here. What you could do is you could make one of those sort of PowerApps edit screens that pops up. So it could appear as an image in the little pop-up screen, because that's going to run under PowerApps and you can bind it to an image control, but by default in your SharePoint list you're not actually going to see any images in there. We've just stored the text information. Okay, so that's great. So that was all in SharePoint, and getting across the idea that this image data is all just a string. It's just letters and numbers. It's fine. Okay, so now let's have a little look at doing the same thing with the camera control but in SQL. So this time I've got exactly the same thing set up, but my data source this time is SQL Server, and I've got a schema called demo, and in it I've got a table called ImageTest. So let's show you that. So let's just zoom in here for a second. So this is my Azure SQL DB database, my demo.ImageTest table, and in there I've just got 3 columns for this demonstration: PhotoId, which is just an incrementing integer, an image field which I've called PhotoAsImage, and a varchar max field which I've called PhotoAsText. So that's what's in my Azure SQL DB database. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to click on the photo, or click on the camera, sorry, to take a photo. So remember, that is stored as text information in the photo parameter, photo property of that camera control. And then here I've got a button which is just going to do the same sort of thing as that one in SharePoint was doing. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to load the image into both of my columns in Azure SQL DB. I'm going to load it into the PhotoAsText and the PhotoAsImage column, and we do it exactly the same way. Camera 1-1 this time, .photo. Okay, so I've got a patch command saying patch to image test, use the defaults for image test so that it appends to the end of the list. And just to see the comparison, I'm going to load the image as text, and I'm going to load the image as image data. So let's see what happens there. Then I'm going to click my button here. Oh, let's put it in play mode first, it makes it easier to click the buttons. So we're going to click the button. That's going to show me the progress indicator. It's going to take a little bit longer because we're loading the photo twice, but have a look at what's happened in my gallery. I've got two images in there. One is based on the image field and one is based on the varchar max field. Can you guess which one is which? So let's have a look. This one is based on the varchar max, the text field, and this one is based on the image one. If I just do that to make them both exactly the same size, it is exactly the same image. It displays exactly the same way, regardless of whether you have the data stored as image data or you have the data stored as text data. So we saw there we get better performance with the text data. So now you know what you're looking for. Let's do that again. So the image based one is the one on the left, the varchar max. The text based one is the one on the right. So I'm going to save another image, so let's just hold up a number 2. Off goes the data, and our gallery repopulates, and here, look how much faster the stuff comes into the text-based one rather than the image-based one. And once you start getting sort of 10, 15 pictures in here that you want to display, then the performance difference really is night and day. Okay, so that's great, and let's see what's happened in our SQL database. So I'm just going to do a quick select from my image test table, and I'm just going to show the photo ID, I'm going to show the length of my PhotoAsText field and the first few characters from my PhotoAsText field. There we are. So there are the photos that I just created. They're photo 24 and 25. They're both the same length, so the string of text that represents those photos is 83,000 characters. And if we just look at the first 50 characters, because it's only really these first little bit at the beginning I want to show you, what has come in is something that's describing what the following characters are all about. So this says, hey look, this is image data, it's a JPEG, and it's in base 64, and then this is the actual information, or the beginning of the information, which represents the photo. And that's just the same as it was in our SharePoint gallery as well. Data, image, JPEG, base 64. Okay, so that's quite useful, I think. So bear in mind in future, if you are using the camera control and saving the photos that you take into SQL Server, then use the varchar max field rather than the image field. As far as PowerApps is concerned, everything you do is exactly the same. You still bind it to an image in exactly the same way. Okay, when you're saving it as well, you patch it in exactly the same way. So if you've actually got an existing solution where you're using an image data type in your SQL Server database, then just go ahead and change it to a varchar max data type. Archive the image data that you've already got first, because we'll show you in a little while how you can convert that into varchar max data instead. But you could just do the whole change on your SQL Server backend and not have to change anything in your PowerApps app. If you've done it with the image field previously, just change the image control to a varchar max control. You will have to refresh your data, in PowerApps, but you won't have to go and change any of the formulas that you've put in. Okay, so that's fantastic. Let's have a look at how this works with the add picture control instead. Now, what I'm just going to do very quickly is I'm going to effectively comment out this data source for this gallery because the next screen also puts data into the image test table, and the more the more galleries and the more screens that you've got referencing that information, everything will go a little bit more slowly. So it's good practice. Don't have lots of things referencing the same data, otherwise you're going to get a performance hit. Okay, so this time I'm going to do it with the add picture control, and I'm going to uncomment this. This is another way of commenting, by the way. What I did just a second ago, let's just mention that quickly, is to comment out this. I just put the whole thing in double quotes. I don't want to lose this because I want to reference to get this again later. So I just want to comment it out for now. Now, I've used a different method of commenting here by putting an if false, then do the instruction, because this has already got a set of double quotes in it. So if you've already got double quotes in your formula, then wrapping the whole thing in double quotes doesn't work. But yeah, let me just take that if false off there so that I'm now refreshing this gallery. So this gallery will now populate with the pictures that we took a second ago because it's based on the same data source. Okay, so there, and we can see exactly the same thing again, that the photo as image takes much longer to appear than the photo as text. Now let's do our example where we're using the add picture control and see what happens there. So I'm going to tap on the add picture control, and I've got a few images that I've created earlier or pinched off the internet earlier. So let me just select one of those and hit the open button. So there we are. I've got some pictures of Batman, and I am going to again save this both as a SQL image and a varchar image. Okay, so for the moment this is exactly the same code as on the previous screen, with the exception that rather than referencing a camera control, this time it's referencing the add media control. Okay, and the way that you do that is you say uploaded image dot image. Okay, so rather than camera dot image, uploaded image dot image. So let's hit the button, put it in play mode, and see what we get. So drum roll please, what's going to happen? Okay, interesting. So it did appear to work. Let's have a little look at that then. So yeah, remember this is the one that is based on text. This is the one which is based on image, and it has appeared. So it works, right? Well, unfortunately, not quite. Let's go and have a look in Azure SQL DB and see what's going on. So again, I'm going to select the information which has come in. Now look at this. The picture that we just uploaded is picture 26. So there it is, number 26. And we'll see picture number 26. Well, the field length is only 73. It's only 73 characters. That doesn't sound like it's enough information for a photo. And we've got a slightly different thing going on here in terms of the text which has been recorded. It's not data::image JPEG, it's this weird blob HTTPS. So what's going on with this? Let's copy this for a moment and come back into our browser, and I'm just going to paste it into our browser, and let's see what happens. Okay, it hasn't managed to find the picture. Right, apologies, because it should have done. I know what I've done. So in our Azure SQL DB, we only were showing the first 50 characters, and this information is actually a little bit longer. So let me just make that a little bit longer, because there's 73 characters that we've got to capture, and do that again. So That's the full thing this time. Now let's put that in our browser. There we go. And now we've got a little picture of Batman on the screen. So what's going on with that? What's happening here? Okay, what's happening is this is information which is locally stored inside your browser. So PowerApps has effectively cached this image inside your browser. What it sent through to SQL Server is the thing that points to that cached image inside the browser itself. And if I go and open a new window and I paste the information in, then it's not there because it's only in this one instance of our browser. And what we will find is, although this is looking great now and it makes you think everything is working, once you close and reopen, then the cache will have been cleared and you won't get a photo here. And obviously if we're working on a mobile device and other people are working on other browsers on other machines, they're not going to get a photo either. So it hasn't given us the result that we wanted. But there is a workaround. There's always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. So let's go back into our Azure SQL DB. And remember, we loaded this into both the image column and the text column as well. And this is picture number 26, so keep a little eye on that for a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that image data, so we can't see the image data in a column unfortunately, but the image data is there. So the data which is in the image column, I'm going to take that and I'm going to convert it into this string text information, and I'm going to do that by working with it as JSON, as JavaScript object notation. I'm going to just use this function within SQL Server to convert the data from my image data type into this base64 URI data type instead. So I'm just going to do it with a select statement first of all. So let's just run that. Now this is going to take it a few seconds because it's returning all of the data. So there we can see photo 26, we've now managed to get it into this DataURI type format where it's all represented as string information. The only problem we've got is that this should be prefixed by some stuff telling it that it is an image of JPEG base64 variety. So I'm going to slightly change my SQL instruction just to put this little string of text in front here. So let's do that. And now I've got something which is the right format. I've got this little bit of header information on here, followed by the string of text which is actually representing the image. Okay, so I'll put this little bit of code in the description of the video so that you can see that. And what I'm going to do here, one other thing, sorry, is what I've also done is, having made sure that this is working and giving me the information that I want, I created a view which I called ImageTest Convert. Okay, so I've created a view just based on this select statement. So now I've got another screen, and on this screen I am using as the basis for my gallery the ImageTest Convert. So that's the view which does the JSON conversion to get my image data into varchar max data type. So let's just hit the refresh button on here, and we should see the images that we created earlier or added earlier. So that's working very nicely. I'm going to go into the tap to take a picture again and just show you something interesting. So we were working with JPEG files, and you can see here in SQL Server when we did our conversion and we put our header information in the front, we said okay, this is JPEG base 64 information. Let's see what happens if we use a PNG file type instead of a JPEG. So I'm going to hit that. So there's my picture of Batman. I'm now going to save this to my image data type. Let's just show you the patch to show you there's nothing funny going on. So this time I'm only saving it to my PhotoAsImage column, but then in my gallery I'm pulling the information back from my ImageTest convert view, and again I've called it PhotoAsText. So let's hit the button. That's going to go ahead and upload this PNG data type as my image column, and then my gallery is going to, I'll have to refresh the gallery manually once it's actually uploaded the image. So let's just wait for the image to upload. There, that was it. Now I've got to refresh the gallery manually because it's based on the view rather than on the table, so it doesn't refresh automatically. But I could easily put a refresh command behind this button, but I'm going to do it manually for the moment just to point out the differences. So what we're now doing is taking that PNG, converting it into the string text and putting a little header in front of it that says it's a JPEG, but it actually still works. So we don't have to make any change. We can deal with JPEG images and PNG type images as well. So that's all fine, working very nicely. And one more thing as a bonus as well, what I've got down the bottom left corner of the screen here is the text pen input control, which is another one where you can't save the data as the varchar max data type. It will come through with that blob format again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly sign my name in this box. Once again, I'm going to hit the button just to save this in the image field in my SQL Server database. Okay, but we know that the image field doesn't play nicely with galleries, so once that is loaded into my SQL Server database, I will again use the refresh button so that we refresh the gallery, and then we'll see whether we can display the text that we have captured inside this pen control box. Okay, so it's taking a little while now for the gallery to refresh because that PNG image was a little bit larger. So there we go, and now we can see as well, look, we can also display things that we have captured in our pen input box as well. So you've got one technique there which can work with the normal camera control. So just a little reminder, with the normal camera control then we can just directly do a patch to our text field, so we don't need this other one anymore. Okay, we could get rid of that because we're just going to save the image and it will come through automatically as text in that base 64 string format with the correct header on it. So that works fine with the camera control. But if you want to work with the add media control, the add picture control, or with the pen input control, then what you can do is you can save the data to the image field, and then in your SQL Server database you can use this For JSON auto function to convert the data into this base 64 string information. You have to remember to put the prefix in front of it, so there I'm just concatenating this onto the front of the photo as image converted by JSON into the string information. and then you can use that with your gallery so that your galleries perform much more quickly. And one other thing just to show you, is there some kind of overhead with doing this conversion from the binary image format using the JSON command and getting it into the varchar max string format? There's a slight overhead, but it's tiny. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run these two queries. So one of them is just pulling some information from the image test table directly. The other one is pulling the information from the image test convert view. So that's the one that does all this JSON stuff. So if I run those two together and then have a look at the execution plan, what we can see is, by comparison, the one that was based just directly on the table has got 48% of the total cost of running these two side by side, and the one on the view has got a 52% cost. So we're talking about a tiny overhead on the SQL Server end to convert the data from binary into the string information that plays so much more nicely with our galleries in PowerApps. And you know, the cost of the query, the time it takes for the query to run, is absolutely tiny compared to the time it takes for it to push all of that image data down to your app anyway. So while this one takes 2% longer than just pulling it directly from a varchar max field, so doing the conversion takes ever so slightly longer for this part of the query, but overall it's going to be less than 1%. It's going to be fractions of 1%, because most of your overhead is actually pushing that data down, not in converting the data in the first place. Okay, so I hope that has made sense to you. So we've got a few different techniques there that I hope you find useful. So we looked at using the camera control with a SharePoint gallery. So remember, we just need to have our gallery have a column of the text data type, plain text, and multiple lines. Or we can use the camera control directly with SQL Server, but the best way of doing that is to use a varchar max column in SQL Server, and then use the varchar max column to populate your data in your gallery. And then the final way was working either with the add picture control or with the pen input control, and the way we do it there is we have to save the data in the image column in SQL Server. If we try and put it in a varchar max column, then PowerApps doesn't send through the data, it sends through a reference to the locally cached information in your browser. Okay, so you send this to the image data type in SQL Server, but then when you want to pull the data back down in your gallery, then what you do is you just have a simple query, a simple view, which converts your information into that string data type and just appends the little header on the front there to say that this is image data of JPEG base 64. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for watching once again. If you have comments, please leave them in the comment section below the video. As I say, I do read them all. I don't always get a chance to reply to them, but it is very nice to know if what I've put together is understandable and clear and makes sense and is useful. Encourages me to keep doing these videos, and if there's something I can improve upon, then please do let me know. And also, if you have ideas for topics you would like me to cover, then pop them in there. It may take me a little while to research the topic before I'm ready to put a video up about it, but yeah, if you'd like me to cover something specific, then drop that in the comments as well. Okay, thank you very much, and bye for now.